The Price of Seeing the Hidden Energy of the Universe. Nikola Tesla, New York, 1895. The laboratory is on fire. Tesla watches the flames consume years of work without blinking once. His eyes don't reflect despair, they reflect something much more disturbing. Relief. As if that fire was the only way to protect what he had discovered. As if the fire were an act of mercy. He holds a small notebook against his chest. It's the only object he saved. Inside, scrawled in faded ink, are equations that should never have been written. Formulas that reveal what the universe hides from everyone, except those crazy enough to see. And Tesla saw it. He always saw it. But seeing has a price. And that night, faced with the smoking ruins of his own legacy, he finally understood. To see the invisible is to carry a weight that no one else can share. And 3 months before that fire, Tesla was at its peak. Newspapers called him a genius. Investors shook his hand with ambitious smiles. He was the man who mastered electricity, who lit up entire cities with alternating currents, who spoke of wireless energy as if describing the sunrise. But no one knew what he really did in the silent dawns. Nobody knew he was trying to touch something bigger. One night, while adjusting coils and meters in the empty laboratory, Tesla felt it. It wasn't a sound. It wasn't a light. It was something before all that. A vibration, as if the air around was breathing, as if space itself was pulsing with a frequency that his instruments couldn't capture, but his skin felt. He froze. He closed his eyes, and then he heard it, not with your ears, with something much deeper. It was as if the universe was whispering directly into his mind, a language without words, made only of rhythm, of waves, of vibrant silence. Tesla understood in that instant that everything around him, the walls, the air, even his own thoughts, was just energy in different states of resonance, and that he, somehow, had learned to listen to her. He opened his eyes slowly. His hands were shaking, not out of fear, of ecstasy, because for the first time in his life, he wasn't alone in his own mind. He had touched something alive, something conscious, something that had always been there, but that no one had ever noticed. That night, Tesla wrote in his notebook, "The universe is not made of matter, it is made of frequencies, and whoever learns to tune in to the right frequency can bend reality." But he made a mistake, a fatal error. He told someone. 2 days later, a man knocked on the laboratory door. Impeccable suit, polite smile, eyes as cold as ice. He introduced himself as a representative of a consortium of investors interested in Tesla's research. But something about the man was wrong. He didn't ask questions about electricity. I didn't want to know about motors or transformers. He wanted to know about frequencies. Tesla felt a shiver run up his spine. How did that man know? He hadn't published anything. He had not mentioned his discoveries to anyone, except in a letter. A single letter sent to a trusted colleague, or so he thought. The man in the suit tilted his head slightly, as if evaluating a rare piece at an auction. "Mr. Tesla, what you discovered does not belong to you. It belongs to the world, and the world needs protection from certain truths." Tesla felt his stomach drop. There was no admiration in that man's eyes. It was possession. "Get out of my laboratory," Tesla said with a firm voice, but with his heart racing. The man smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Of course, but think about it, Mr. Tesla. There are things that, once seen, cannot be unseen, and there are men who prefer these things to remain invisible." He left, but the threat hung in the air like toxic smoke. That same night, Tesla locked the notebook in a hidden safe. He knew something terrible was about to happen, because he had committed the most dangerous sin of all, seeing what should not be seen, and now, someone wanted to erase that vision. Anyway, if you're feeling like this story is touching something inside you, something that resonates with the search for hidden truths, subscribe to the channel, because what comes next will reveal not just what Tesla discovered, but the price he paid for it, and perhaps the price we all pay when we dare to see beyond. Tesla didn't sleep that night, not even the next one. He sat in the laboratory, watching the shadows dance on the walls, listening to every creak of wood, every whisper of wind. His mind wouldn't stop. I couldn't stop, because now he understood something that changed everything. He was not alone, covering the hidden energy of the universe. He was being discovered by her, and worse, others knew it too. On the third night, he decided to act. If there were people willing to silence him, then he needed to leave a record, something that would survive even if he didn't. Tesla opened his notebook and began to write feverishly, translating into words what his mind had captured in that cosmic vibration. He described how every human thought emits a frequency, how emotions alter the energy field around the body, how intention, pure, concentrated, aligned, can modify matter at a quantum level. He wrote about sympathetic resonance between minds, about how consciousnesses can synchronize like tuning forks vibrating on the same note. And then, he wrote the most dangerous part of all. Whoever controls the frequency, controls reality. Whoever understands this, understands the secret that all empires have tried to hide since the beginning of time. He stopped. He reread the sentence. He felt a crushing weight in his chest, because now he knew why that man in the suit had shown up. It wasn't just about science. It was about power, absolute power, the kind of power that can't be allowed into the wrong hands, or perhaps into anyone's hands. Tesla closed his notebook and looked at his hands. They trembled, not out of fear, of anger at yourself, because he had been naive. He had believed that the truth would set humanity free, but the truth, he now realized, was a weapon, and every gun has owners who prefer to keep it locked up. On 2 days later, the laboratory was raided. Tesla arrived in the morning and found the door broken, papers scattered, overturned equipment, but nothing had been stolen. At least, nothing obvious. They were looking for something specific, and Tesla knew exactly what. He ran to the hidden safe. It was still closed. The notebook was safe, but the message was clear. We know where you keep your secrets, and we can get them whenever we want. That afternoon, Tesla received an unexpected visitor. It wasn't the man in the suit. It was someone from his past, an old university classmate, someone he trusted, or at least he trusted. The man entered nervously, looking around as if he were being followed. Tesla, I need to warn you. You are messing with people who cannot tolerate curiosity, people who have resources and influence. They know what you discovered, and they will do everything they can to make sure this never reaches the public. Tesla felt his blood run cold. Who are they? The colleague hesitated. His eyes were filled with something Tesla had never seen in him before. Genuine fear. I don't know for sure, but I know they are old, very old, and they have always been behind the scenes controlling what humanity can or cannot know. They have different names at different times, but the objective is always the same, to maintain concentrated power. And the greatest form of power is consciousness. If people understand that they can shape reality with their own mind, with their own vibration, their world will fall apart. Tesla felt a wave of nausea. It wasn't paranoia, it was real. There was an invisible machine, a silent structure operating in the shadows, ensuring that certain truths were never revealed. And he had stumbled right into her. What do I do? Tesla asked, almost whispering. The colleague put his hand on his shoulder. His eyes were teary. You forget, you burn everything. And he moves on as if he had never seen anything. Tesla took a step back in disbelief. Are you asking me to destroy the greatest discovery in human history? I'm asking you to survive. But Tesla couldn't. I just couldn't forget, because he had not just seen the hidden energy of the universe. He had felt it. And once you feel the vibration of existence itself pulsing within you, there is no going back. There is no way to pretend that the world is solid, fixed, immutable. Everything becomes fluid. Everything becomes possible. And at the same time, everything becomes dangerous. That night, alone in the laboratory, Tesla made a decision. He wouldn't destroy his notes, but I wouldn't give them to anyone either. He would hide them in a way that only someone with the same mental frequency could find. He would encode knowledge in layers of symbols, numbers, metaphors, a language that would only awaken in the mind of those who were ready. He would turn his discoveries into a living enigma. But as I was writing, something strange started to happen. He felt the vibration again. Only this time, she was different, more intense, almost furious. And then he listened, not with your ears, with the mind. A voice, or something like a voice, deep, ancestral, coming from nowhere and everywhere at the same time. You have been warned. Tesla left the pen to fall. His heart raced. He looked around, but he was alone, completely alone. And yet, the presence was there, invisible, oppressive, as if the universe itself was watching. He took a deep breath, trying to calm himself, but the voice echoed again, this time clearer. There is a price for seeing what should not be seen, and you have already begun to pay it. Tesla closed his eyes. He felt tears run down his face, not out of sadness, from exhaustion, because he finally understood. The price was not death. It wasn't the chase. The price was carrying the weight of a truth that no one else can see. It was living in a world where everyone around you is blind, and you are the only one who sees. But you can't do anything, because revealing your vision means destroying yourself. He opened his eyes, wiped away the tears, and he continued writing. Because even knowing the price, even feeling the crushing weight of that cosmic loneliness, he couldn't stop. Because the truth, no matter how dangerous it was, no matter how lonely it made his existence, it was still the truth. And Tesla had sworn since he was a child that he would never lie to himself, not even if it killed him. In the following weeks, Tesla changed, not outwardly. He still attended dinner parties, still smiled at photographers, still gave interviews about his inventions. But inside, something had broken. He now lived in two worlds simultaneously. The visible world, where people discussed shares on the stock exchange and disputed patents, and the invisible world, where frequencies danced and consciousness shaped matter. And with each passing day, the gulf between these two worlds grew wider. He began to notice patterns, small signs. A man who always appeared in the same places as him. Letters that arrived open. Conversations that were interrupted when he entered rooms. It wasn't paranoia, it was surveillance. Discreet, but constant. Tesla knew he had little time. Then he started to prepare, but not in the way they expected. He created a secret information network. He divided his notes into fragments, sent parts to different people, obscure scientists, small-town librarians, even a priest who knew math. None of them had complete knowledge, but together, like puzzle pieces scattered across the country, they formed the entire map. Tesla also started building something no one in the lab understood. It was a tower, a strange metallic structure, full of coils and antennas, which he set up in secret during the early hours of the morning. When they asked what it was, he said it was an experiment in wireless power transmission. But it wasn't. It was a mental frequency transmitter. Tesla had discovered that coherent thoughts, when amplified through electrical resonance, could be projected into the surrounding energy field, not like words, but as intentions, like vibrational seeds that were planted in the collective consciousness and germinated into ideas, insights, awakenings. He was trying to create a device that could transmit knowledge directly to ready minds, speechless, no papers, no risk of interception. It was brilliant, it was impossible, and it was the only chance he had. But while Tesla worked in secret, he didn't realize something crucial. He was being studied. The man in the suit had not disappeared. He was just observing, taking notes, learning Tesla patterns, discovering your weaknesses. Because people like that man don't attack directly. They wait, they study, and when they attack in the exact spot where it hurts the most. And for Tesla, that point was not the laboratory. They were not his inventions. It was his mind. One night, Tesla began to have visions. They weren't dreams. He knew how to tell the difference. They were intrusions, images that did not come from inside him, but from outside. Faces he didn't know, places you've never visited, and a suffocating feeling, as if something was trying to force its way into your consciousness. He would wake up sweating, with his heart pounding, feeling like his own mind was being invaded. At first, he thought he was losing his sanity, but then he realized something terrifying. They were using the same technology against him. Someone had discovered how to project disturbing frequencies directly into his mental field. They were trying to break him from the inside out. Tesla locked himself in the laboratory for 3 days straight. He stopped eating. I barely drank water. He needed to understand how to defend himself. And then, in a moment of extreme clarity, he understood. The best defense was not to block the frequency. It was to change her. He built a small portable device, a kind of field harmonizer. When activated, it emitted a counter-frequency that neutralized intrusions. Tesla called it a mental shield. It was primitive, but it worked. For the first time in weeks, he managed to sleep without being tormented. But now he knew the full truth, and it was darker than I imagined. And those who persecuted him were not just powerful. They also understood frequencies. Maybe not as deeply as Tesla, but enough to use knowledge as a weapon. And if they knew this, it meant that this war was not new. It was old, perhaps as old as civilization itself. Tesla started researching. He scoured ancient texts, forgotten manuscripts, accounts of cultures that spoke of vital energy, chi, prana, ether. They all described the same thing. There were always those who saw, and there were always those who tried to silence them. Because knowledge about the true nature of reality is the greatest power there is. And power has never been distributed equally. It was always kept, hidden, protected behind symbols, rituals, secret societies. And Tesla had unintentionally thrown open a door that should have remained locked. He sat down in front of his notebook, now full of encrypted notes, and wrote a single sentence, not for the present, but for the future. If you're reading this, it's because you resonate with the right frequency. Don't try to broadcast it. Don't try to prove it. Just live in the vibration that you discovered, and trust that others at the right time will resonate too, because truth doesn't spread by force. It spreads by resonance. He closed the notebook. He sighed deeply. For the first time in months, he felt something like peace, because now he knew he didn't need to win the war. He just needed to plant seeds in the right place and let time and frequency do the rest. But the universe, as always, had other plans. That same night, while Tesla was adjusting the last details of the transmitter tower, he heard footsteps, Heavy steps. Many. He looked out the window and felt his stomach drop. Men in uniforms. Authorities. And in their midst, calm as a snake, the man in the suit. They didn't come to talk. They came to close. Tesla had just seconds to decide. He looked at the tower. He looked at the notebook. And then, with the clarity of someone who already knows the outcome, he pressed the button. The tower began to vibrate. A sharp frequency filled the air. Invisible but devastating. The men hesitated at the door. Some put their hands on their heads. Dizzy. Others fell to their knees. Disoriented. But the man in the suit remained standing. He looked at Tesla with something that bordered on respect. Impressive, Mr. Tesla, but it won't save you. He gestured. And then the unthinkable happened. One of the men threw a lit torch at the base of the laboratory. Tesla saw the flames rise. He saw the fire spread quickly, devouring wood, papers, years of work, but he didn't move. He just stood there, watching, with the notebook clutched to his chest. Because at that moment, he understood something liberating. They could burn the laboratory down, but they couldn't burn the frequency he had transmitted. In those few seconds that the tower was active, it sent out a pulse, a wave of pure, coded, resonant intention. And now, spread across the invisible field of the universe, that frequency traveled, looking for ready minds, minds that vibrated on the same note. Tesla smiled, a sad smile, but genuine. He had lost the battle, but it planted the seeds of a much bigger war. And as he walked out of the burning laboratory, holding only his notebook and his dignity, he whispered to himself, "They can put out the fire, but they cannot turn off the light that has already been lit." The fire burned for hours. When the flames finally went out, there was almost nothing left. Ashes, twisted metal, the acrid smell of charred dreams. The next day's newspapers reported it as a tragic accident, short circuit, fatality. Nobody questioned it. No one investigated thoroughly. Tesla read the headlines silently, sitting in a cheap hotel room, far from everything. He knew this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of something much worse, because now he had nothing left to lose. And a man with nothing to lose is the most dangerous thing in the universe. And 2 weeks later, Tesla reappeared, but not as the brilliant inventor everyone knew. He was different, slimmer, sunken eyes, unshaven. He looked like a ghost of himself. People whispered that he had gone crazy, that the loss of the lab had broken him. But Tesla wasn't broke. It was sharp. He started going to strange places, obscure libraries, ancient churches, forgotten philosophical societies. He looked for people, specific people, those who, like him, had touched something beyond, those that vibrated at the same invisible frequency, and he found them. A reclusive mathematician who studied sacred geometry, a medium who could feel energy fields, a monk who had spent years in silent meditation and discovered how to alter his own heartbeat with just intention. They were people the world ignored, people considered eccentric, crazy, irrelevant. But Tesla knew the truth. They were the only sane ones in a world of blind people. He brought them together, not formally. There were no names. There was no organization, just silent meetings in discreet places. And together, they started to put something together, a plan, not revenge, but of resurgence. Tesla shared with them fragments of what he had discovered. He taught about frequencies, about resonance, about how focused intent could alter the surrounding field. And most importantly, he taught them to hide this knowledge, coding it, broadcasting it only to those ready to receive. They have become an invisible network, a web of aligned consciousnesses, vibrating on the same note. And slowly, discreetly, they began to spread the seeds, not in scientific articles, not in public speeches, but in whispered conversations, in books buried in forgotten sections of libraries, in symbols drawn in unlikely places. Tesla was playing a game of solitaire, because he knew that those who persecuted him expected an immediate reaction. They expected him to react with anger, with despair, with desperate attempts to prove his discovery. But he did the opposite. He disappeared, and in the silence, he planted. Meanwhile, the man in the suit began to notice that something was wrong. Reports reached him, small anomalies, people in different places with no apparent connection, starting to ask the same questions. Shady scientists publishing strange papers about fields of consciousness, philosophical groups discussing mental resonance. Nothing obvious, nothing that could be traced back to Tesla directly, but the pattern was there. The man in the suit called a meeting, a dark room, faceless people, voices that echoed without identification. Tesla did not die in the fire, and he didn't give up. "He's doing something we can't track." "Then find him," said a deep voice coming from the shadows, "and finish this, once for all." The man in the suit nodded, but for the first time in his career, he felt something unusual, doubt, because Tesla was not behaving as expected. He wasn't fighting, it was dissolving, like smoke, like frequency, impossible to capture, and that was much more dangerous. Months passed. Tesla continued to live simply, almost invisibly. He stayed in cheap hotels, paid with what little he had, ate little, spoke even less, but at night, when everyone was sleeping, he worked. He rebuilt the tower, not physically, but mentally. He discovered he didn't need equipment. It didn't need coils or antennas, because he himself was the antenna. His own body, his own mind, when calibrated to the right frequency, could transmit, and he transmitted it every night, silently, sending pulses of pure intent into the invisible field, calling, waking up, resonating with those ready to listen, and they started to wake up. In different parts of the country, people began to have strange dreams, sudden insights, feelings of inexplicable connection. Some wrote, others painted, others simply knew, and without understanding why, they all began to search, seek something bigger, something true. Tesla was creating a wave of awakening, slow, silent, but unstoppable. And then, it happened. One night, while Tesla was meditating in his room, he felt something different, a presence, but not threatening. It was familiar, as if someone was resonating on the same exact frequency as him. He opened his eyes, and he saw it, not with physical eyes, but with an internal view. It was a figure, or something like a figure, made of light, of pure vibration, and she spoke without words. You did what few could do. You touched the truth and didn't run away from it. But now, you must choose, go it alone, or trust others to continue for you. Tesla felt tears flow. He understood. He had carried this weight alone for so long, and now the universe was telling him he could rest, that the seed had already been planted, that others would water. But before he could respond, the bedroom door was kicked down. The man in the suit entered, alone. No guards, no weapons, just him. And for the first time, Tesla saw something different in his eyes. Exhaustion. I should kill you now, the man said, in a tired voice. But it won't help, will it? You've already spread it. It has already contaminated minds. You have already planted the frequency. Tesla was silent, just watched. The man in the suit took a step forward, and then, something unexpected happened. He took off his jacket, he sat down on the floor, and he started to cry. I saw it too, he whispered. Years ago, I also played the vibration, but I chose the wrong side. I chose to protect the system, because I was afraid. Fear of chaos, fear of what would happen if everyone knew. Tesla felt a wave of compassion. He approached. He knelt down beside the man. It's not too late, Tesla said softly. The man looked up. They were red, broken. Yes, it is, because they will kill me if I don't kill you. Tesla smiled, a sad smile, but full of understanding. Then don't kill me, just let me go. And when I leave, you decide. You either continue serving fear, or you start serving the truth. The man in the suit stood still. For long seconds, he said nothing. He just looked at his hands, hands that had silenced so many, hands that had protected the system, hands that were now shaking. And then he got up, he put his jacket back on, and left, without looking back. Tesla stayed there, in the silence of the room, and he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope, because he had just witnessed the most powerful twist of all. Not the defeat of an enemy, but the crack in the armor of those who serve is fear. And cracks, he knew, always grow. Tesla left the hotel before dawn. He knew that conversation had changed everything. The man in the suit had made a choice, not to kill. And this choice, however small it seemed, was a fissure in the entire system, because systems are not made of structures. They are made of obedience. And when obedience falters, the system begins to fall apart. He walked through the empty streets of New York, watching the city wake up. Bakers opening doors, vendors setting up stalls, ordinary people living ordinary lives, without imagining that beneath the visible surface of the world, something was changing. A frequency was spreading, invisible, silent, but real. Tesla no longer had a laboratory. There were no more machines, but he had something much more powerful. He had resonance, and resonance cannot be burned. It cannot be stolen. It cannot be erased. He found an empty bench near a park and sat down. The notebook was still with him, worn, stained, but intact. He opened it for the last time. He ran his fingers over the pages, feeling the weight of everything that was written there. They weren't just formulas. It was a map for anyone who was ready. And then he did something no one would have expected. He tore out the pages, one by one, and he started spreading them. He left one on a bench, another on a coffee table, another in a church pew, another at the entrance to a library. He had no control over who would find them. There was no guarantee that the right people would read them. But he trusted. He trusted that the frequency would find those who resonated with it, because the truth does not need control. She just needs space to vibrate. Weeks later, Tesla received a letter. There was no sender, just a symbol on the envelope, a symbol he had drawn in his notebook. Someone had found it. Someone had understood. He opened the letter. Inside, there was just one sentence. The frequency has been received. We will continue. Tesla felt something he didn't know if he was capable of feeling anymore. Relief. He no longer had to carry everything alone. He no longer needed to fight alone. Because he had done the only thing that mattered. He had broadcast. And now, the message had a life of its own. In the following months, more letters arrived from different places, different people. Some signed with their names, others just with symbols. But everyone said the same thing. We received it, we understand, and we will continue. Tesla realized he had created something that those in the shadows could never destroy. Because it wasn't an organization, it was not a secret society. It was a living network of resonant consciousnesses, people who would never meet physically, but who vibrated at the same frequency. And together, without coordination, without leaders, they were changing the energy field of the world. Small changes, imperceptible, but real. A scientist began to question old paradigms. An artist began to paint visions of realities beyond matter. A teacher began teaching children about energy and intention. Small seeds, planted in different soils, waiting for the right moment to germinate. And Tesla knew he wouldn't see the harvest. But that didn't matter, because he had learned the most profound lesson of all. Truth does not belong to those who discover it. It belongs to whoever resonates with it. Years passed. Tesla has aged. His public fame disappeared. He became a forgotten figure, an eccentric who lived in modest hotels and talked to himself on the streets. People saw him as crazy, like someone who had lost his reason. But he hadn't lost in from the. He had gained something few achieve. Freedom. Freedom from fear. Freedom from the need for approval. Freedom from the illusion of control. He continued transmitting, every night, sitting in silence, eyes closed, vibrating at the frequency I had discovered, sending pulses of pure intent into the invisible field, calling, resonating, trusting, and the universe responded. One night, shortly before his death, Tesla had a vision. It wasn't like the intrusions he had suffered before. It was different. It was inviting. He saw the future, not in a linear way, but in layers. Like overlapping frequencies, he saw wars. He saw destruction. He saw humanity stumble and fall. But he also saw something else. Saw little lights, thousands of them, spread around the world. People waking up, people feeling the vibration, people starting to understand. And he saw that those lights were slowly connecting, forming a network, a luminous web around the planet. And in that web, he recognized the frequency he had broadcast decades ago. She had survived. It had multiplied. It had spread. Tesla cried, not out of sadness, of gratitude, because he understood that his sacrifice had not been in vain. He had paid the price of seeing what should not be seen, but by paying that price, he paved the way for others to see too. And now, the vision was spreading, slow but unstoppable. Tesla died alone in a hotel room in 1943. There were no crowds. There were no tributes, just silence. But in that silence, something extraordinary happened. At the exact moment of his death, people around the world felt something, a shiver, a vibration, as if an invisible string had been struck and the sound had echoed throughout existence. Some stopped what they were doing. Others looked at the sky without understanding why. But everyone somehow knew something had changed. A frequency had been released completely. No more physical restrictions, no more body limitations. Tesla had become pure vibration, and now he was everywhere at once. Decades later, his notes were found, not all at once, but little by little. A page here, another one there, scattered across time and space. And every person who found a fragment felt the same thing, recognition. They didn't understand all the equations. They were unable to reproduce all the experiments, but something inside them resonated. And this resonance changed something in their lives. It opened doors, expanded perceptions, it freed minds. And so, Tesla's discovery spread, not like an explosion, but like a wave, slow, constant, invisible to the eyes, but felt by those who vibrated at the right frequency. Today, the world still does not know the complete truth, still don't understand what Tesla really discovered, but the seeds are germinating. In every person who questions material reality, in every scientist who studies consciousness, in every meditator who feels the vibration within themselves, in every child who asks, what is energy? The network is growing, and the price Tesla paid, the solitude, the silence, the invisibility, was not waste, it was planting. because he understood something that few understand. Some truths cannot be taught, they can only be transmitted, and transmission happens through frequency, not words. He paid the price of seeing the hidden energy of the universe, but by paying that price, he ensured that others, at the right time, could see too, without having to pay the same price, because he had already opened the way, and paths, once opened, never completely close. If you've made it this far, it's because something inside you resonated with this story. It wasn't a coincidence, it was frequency. And now you are part of this invisible network, the network of those who see beyond the surface, of those who feel the vibration, from those who know that the universe is much more than it seems. Subscribe to the channel, not to follow me, but to continue to resonate with the truth that Tesla began to convey over a century ago, because the frequency is still alive, it's still spreading, and you are now part of it. Thank you for feeling, thanks for cheering, thanks for seeing. The hidden energy of the universe has always been here. Tesla just reminded us to look.